Welcome to HitPointsGaming. My name is Andrea, and I'm joined by my husband Corey. And today we are going to be reviewing a game called Age of Galaxies that's coming to Kickstarter in April.
That's right, and it's published by Ice Makes Games. They reached out to us to do a review copy of this game. Now, for those of you who have seen our channel before or are aware of the type of games that we like to play, well, we like to play a lot of co-op games, right? But really, my favorite game, for those of you in the industry, might know a little something called Twilight Imperium, which you do not like. Well, you actually...
It is the only game in our collection that I refuse to play. I have never played, and I don't think I will ever play.
Very long game, a lot of diplomacy, politics, backstabbing, galactic building, ships, whatever. Really liked it.
Not my cup of tea.
So when I was reached out to do a review of Age of Galaxies, I was sure, the theming is there for me. However, when I saw that it was a very small box, a little skeptical, right? So we know that there's a few small games out there in the market, right? These are really good for when you're going and traveling.
Well, that's when we use
conventions.
Yep.
There's a lot of rules in these, though, however. And it's pretty deep. Now, when I did receive Age of Galaxies and I noticed that the box is actually even smaller.
Even better for traveling.
Okay, even better for traveling. But again, how is it going to deliver the same experience, in a way that's Twilight Imperium? Then I dug into the rules. It was a little complicated to get started with, which I know you're going to touch on. However, let's fast forward and completely taken by surprise on how...
In a good way. In a very good way.
Great way. On the thematic feel to this game. It delivers, at least from my point of view, what Twilight Imperium does in an hour. And it's something that you enjoyed and like to play.
Was it our first game or second game where I came within 1 point of Corey? Which makes me automatically want to play a game again. If I can get that close to him, I just want to set it up and do it again. So,
well,
I love it.
It's one of the few games that we received to do a demo on, prior to obviously going out to Kickstarter, that as soon as we were done playing, we wanted to play it again right away because we had so much fun. So we'll save a little bit of why that is. But first, I think it makes sense for us to give you kind of an overview of the game if you're not aware of it already. So, in Age of Galaxy, it's broken up into 4 phases that takes place over the course of 5 rounds. We each take on multiple factions to build your empire, and this is really key to the game, and again, we'll bring this up later. There's going to be a deck of different faction cards that you get. You start the game with 7 of them. And randomly, right? And then there's 2 ways. You can either do a drafting variant or just do a whole mulligan. You can discard 3, draw up to 3 more. This is really what's going to drive a lot of your decisions in the game. So many different things on these faction cards here. And again, your empire is going to basically be made up of 3 of these by the time that the game is over. What you're going to have to do is, once you select your 7, you're going to select one of them to be your starting species, right? So you'll play that, and you'll basically be getting some bonuses when you play your character faction card, and I'll explain that. But first, let's show you the overview of the board here. So I mentioned that there's going to be 5 different rounds that you play the game in. First, we're going to be starting here in this, we'll call it a sector here. And it's noted by this galactic fleet. So basically, Andrea and I, in the first round, we can basically colonize any of the planets in this first sector. And then each round, this ship is going to keep moving, and we're going to be flipping and revealing more of the sectors as the game progresses. At the beginning, you're also going to be receiving 3 action cubes each. Okay? We go back and forth planning our actions. So after the production phase, you start doing your actions. To show you a little bit of the character card here, or our own player boards, there's a lot going on, which is why I said the rule book itself, at least in the prototype form, right, it was a little difficult to understand everything. There's a lot of icons going on, especially I think when I was showing you this, it was a little overwhelming.
It was a little over. Corey is very good, if you guys hadn't already known this, at explaining rules, making them simple. He's right. There are a lot of rules, and that's just because there are a lot of different, let's say, options that your race or races can take depending on the benefits on their cards or future benefits that you want to get. So it seemed way too overwhelming in the beginning. There's way too many options of, I guess, tracks to go on. But it helped to just get started playing.
Definitely.
And I would say after the first shift, when our fleet moved over to the next, it was already,
totally makes sense.
Makes sense. Complete sense. Okay, now let's go. Now which way do I want to decide to go?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I read the rulebook 2 or 3 times before I started laying out the tokens, started playing it. I wish I just did it sooner. As soon as you did it, all the icons make total sense. There's this really great reference card that I didn't even look at the first time, and everything's right here. So packaged really well, contained in a small box in the game. So all the components it is great. It's what you need to play. So going back to your faction card, you start off basically with this track at the top. You're tracking 2 things: your currency in yellow and your production in orange. So at the beginning of the round, each round, you are going to gain currency equal to your production, and then your production goes down 1. Basically, you're using your resources, right? Then you're going to get your 3 action cubes, and then on your main action board right here, you're going to be doing 1 of 9 actions.
Those action cubes go fast. You have to decide,
Right. So
I only have 1 action left. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I didn't even note this, but at the end of the game, what you're looking to do is obviously have the most victory points. And there's multiple ways to get victory points again.
Which is why there's so many different rules.
Right. So, real quick to go over the actions here. Basically, what you're trying to do is, you want to colonize these planets out here. So I can spend an action to colonize, and I can actually select one of the planets that are in the sector that we have, as long as...
your race can colonize that type of planet.
Right. So right here, I'll show you one of the faction cards. So again, if you play this faction right away, you're going to gain 1 gold, and this right here is the number of ships that you get. So ships come into play. So there is battle in this, but I think it's at a scale that makes it so that you don't have to be too concerned about it. You don't even need to go into fighting or backstabbing.
I never worry about it.
Well, I do. But it only helps a little bit, or maybe it doesn't. And I'll get into that. So you play this faction card. At the bottom here, it's going to show you what planets they can inhabit. So again, as you have more factions, you might be able to inhabit more planets on the board.
More different types of planets.
Exactly. So this is actually Ice Planet. So I could colonize. So as an action, I'll place it right here. And then I gain whatever resource on that actual planet. So these are called discovery tokens, which come into play a little bit later. Green are relics. These are with 1 victory point at the end of the game. And you'll also gain, you'll see here, like this has production, so your production goes up by 1. But that's only 1 of 9 actions that I can do. I can colonize this planet. Or I could actually, let's see, I can actually manufacture and build ships. Right? So a lot of the colonies or a lot of the factions, they'll actually allow you to start the game with ships, right? Or, as action here, I can pay 2 gold per ship, and I get 1 of these, right? And they'll come into play during the war phase, which doesn't start till round 2, which I really do enjoy. I don't have to worry about getting ships the first turn or worrying about combat right now. That happens from rounds 2 through 5, okay? This is getting, like I said, this is getting ships. You can then later on develop a planet. So if you already have a city, or how I like to teach it, it's kind of like settlers, right? This is basically a village, and then you can upgrade it to a city. And by doing so, it's going to be worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. And it also unlocks the ability of sending some of your, let's say, it unlocks a new action that allows you to send people to like the Galactic Council, where you'll actually get a ton of influence points, which is really, victory points at the end of the game. So this is basically like an influence tracker. So this is a really easy way of seeing kind of what your victory points are but it's only a part of the victory
Only
points.
a part.
Right. So we'll go back and forth playing actions. Like I said, this is colonize, this is develop, making it a city, this is getting ships. This allows you to explore, so there's going to be these anomalies on the board that you can send one of your ships out to go and detect. You flip it over, and basically you gain whatever on the other side. So you can get 3 gold and 2 discovery. You can also do research. So each player is going to have a tech tree, their own player board here with their tech tree that starts at the bottom of the board. It's just like any video game talent grid where you start on the bottom. I could basically develop this, and then after as a future action, I can go either here or here. So I go up the tree. And there's, again, 9 different things that you can do here to research. I won't go into each one, but it allows you to either gain more production. It allows you to basically get warp drive. So I could always colonize one ahead of the galactic fleet. So in case I wanted to
jump ahead,
get something before you, I could definitely do that. There's also ways here that you can develop new weaponry for your ships. That comes into play during the war phase. So we could basically tie with ships, but you have better weapons than me, so it's a tiebreaker. That's really how deep combat goes, and I'll get into that in a second. So you can do research to gain technology. You can retrieve, so you can convert money and discovery tokens, which I saw mentioned before, into relics, which are going to be victory points at the end of the game. You can also spend 1 cube for 1 gold, which I think is the worst action ever, right? But I actually needed to do this in one of our games. There's no way I'm ever going to waste an action to gain 1 gold. Sometimes you have to. You can also trade. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to put out 3 random trade cards up here. And it's basically ways that you can convert certain trade goods, like influence, discovery, production.
Or your ships.
Or your ships, to then gain X. Maybe influence on the board here. Multiple ways. And there's also a way that can trigger our golden age. I won't get into, but it's a way to actually gain more actions for the following turn. Pretty neat, because again, you mentioned earlier, you only get 3 actions around.
And they go quick.
They go quick. So it's a way to get a little bit more if you do that.
If you plan it right, yeah.
Trade, and then the last one is nominate. So this is the action that you can only do if you have a city. This is allowing you to go to the Galactic Council. So I can spend 3 influence, which are these purple things, to send somebody to the Galactic Congress, and I would get 4 on the board here. So
that was my favorite action.
You liked going to do that.
I liked doing that. Yes, quick. I think that's probably the most victory points you could gain at one time.
Right.
From
For
an
like
action.
one action, right away.
From an action.
So, like I said, you got the 3 actions. You're going to go back and forth and place those. In addition to your turn, this is really where the beginning of the game is important. So, you start the game with 7 faction cards. In addition to your turn, you can play the 6 remaining faction cards in one of 3 ways. So let's take a little bit closer look at some of the faction cards here. So let's take a look at this one. So again, we already mentioned that when you play it, you're going to gain these, either the currency or the ship right away. You're also then going to be able to settle on whatever planets you put here. So again, if I had this one to start and I had played this one as a faction card, now I can colonize either snow and water planets. But also, they're going to have their own specific either actions or abilities that grant you as soon as you play the card, right? Or special things. So like this one right here, whenever I develop, let's see here, may spend 2 production as a cost to develop. So I can actually spend production to develop instead of spending 7 gold. That's only if I have this faction card as one of my 3 factions. So you can play these, like I said, in addition to your action, as an additional, sub-action to add to your empire. So you can have 3 of these factions. Instead of playing them, you can actually use them as the bottom. You can actually play them for a resource at the bottom of the card, and then they get discarded.
Right.
So again, I can only have 3 factions, so I can then play this as either gaining an influence, or I could have played this one to gain 3 gold.
So once it's down as your faction, you can no longer then discard it to use the extra bonus at the bottom. Those are only the cards that you're not putting in front of you.
And then the last thing that you'll notice on these cards here is basically the ideology that they have. So I think there's 5 different types.
Yeah.
And basically at the end of the game, if you have 3 of your factions, then whatever has the majority, that's going to be your ideology at the end of the game, and that is the end of the game. More ways to gain victory points. Mm-hmm. So right here, if I had 2 purples, basically for every 4 influence on this track here, I gain 1 additional victory point. So instead of playing your faction to create your empire, discarding it for the item at the bottom, you can also play one to change your ideology for your entire empire as whatever you want by just playing it like this.
And that is the only way, the only thing you can use it for.
Right.
If you do it this way, yeah.
So more to come later at my thoughts about that. The only other thing that I would really mention here is at the end of the first round, your fleet, I guess the whole fleet's going to move 1 space. Then this card is going to flip over. You're going to know what's coming out. Mm-hmm. You put down any of the other anomalies. If you're playing a 3 or 4 player game, there would be additional planets that would come out here. This one's a little different. I like this one. You can't settle on this planet unless you have terraforming, which is going to be one of your upgrades that you can
research,
get, which I definitely like to do. Mm-hmm. And like I said, each round your production's going to go down 1.
Unless you do some kind of action that increases or stabilizes it.
Right. War phase. This is the last thing that I want to mention how the game works. So after the first round, you start the second round, then the war phase is going to begin after you plan your actions. What you basically do is you count up the number of your ships. Okay.
Against the opponents.
I'll give myself 3 because I usually do this, and you only have 2.
Correct.
And whoever has the majority is basically going to become like the warlord of that round. And they gain a bonus, which I don't think I have the card here, but it's something like I gain 1 new influence on the track.
Yeah.
Right? In addition to that, I have the opportunity to basically kind of capture one of your planets. It does nothing for me, right? But it does prevent you from gaining victory points at the end of the game.
So if I have colonized a planet that's not protected by defenses that I've built up during the rounds, you can take away the victory points.
Yeah, so say this is
or
yours.
2 victory points for me if I have a city.
You can basically come there and block it. So at the end of the game, when you count your victory points, that would gain nothing.
Right.
Quick note, you did mention, well, how do you protect it? Well, you protect it by the number of ships in your fleet. So if you have 4 planets and you have 4 ships, and you're protected, I can still gain the victory points for being like the overlord that round, but I can't basically come and steal one of your planets.
There are other ways that you can protect your planets.
Through research as well.
Yes, through research
as well. And like I said, you go through that. At the end of 5 rounds, you total up the victory points and you see who the winner is. So there was a lot there, right? We started with, it was very, very, a lot of rules, and you did say, I do a good job of explaining it, which hopefully I didn't butcher it as I went through all the different actions. However, let's take a step back and explain, after your first game playthrough, what did you, I already spoiled that we really enjoyed this game.
We did. Well, the first time we played through, it was just the 2 of us. And then afterwards, we tried a 3-player game.
Yes.
I like them both equally. I don't think there's any loss or gain from more players, less players, at least, this far.
It scales really well.
Yes, okay, sorry, that's the technical term.
Twilight Imperium, I like to play with max players because I feel like I need to have as many interactions as possible. This, I was fine with 2 players.
I was not ready for the game to be over. That's how much fun I was having. Yeah. The actions go so fast and there's so much to do that by the time you get there, you're already, on the 4th round and you've missed the opportunity to do XYZ because you're focused on something else. The factions I enjoyed. They vary widely. It does really make a difference which direction you go, which actions you choose, depending on the 7 cards that you're dealt. In the beginning, you might not have any ice planets. Even after you mulligan and get more, you might not have any. So how do you change your strategy without being able to colonize? So I like that, the variety. One of, I don't know if I would say one of my favorite games, but a game that Corey and I enjoy playing together is called Terraforming Mars. Now, if anybody's ever played that game, it could last a very long time. Not as long as Twilight Imperium, but you kind of build your engine with the cards that you place down, and you know, that's how you gain your victory. Is it victory points in Terraforming Mars? To me, this was like a mini Terraforming Mars. There's an engine that you can build in some instances, but then boom, it's over.
Yeah.
Whoa. You're like, wow, I felt like we got the whole game in just like a tiny little box, a snippet. It's really fast. It's not something that you have to set your whole day aside and plan meals around. Twilight Imperium. So if it's, time that you need, this is the game. This is the game.
I agree. I'm not a true fan of a lot of short games. I like the epic, the long games, and whatnot.
It didn't feel like a short, even though it is a short game, it didn't feel like a short game.
I got the whole experience out of it, and it was so short that we could set up and play another one. Right? It's really easy to set up and reset.
And honestly, the rules are very daunting. They were daunting for me. Just get started, just start playing, even if you just have to do a test play to, see what everything does. Yeah. But by that second round, and then by the time we did the 3-player game, I felt like the 3rd player was at a disadvantage.
Right. He needed that one round to play, and then
we already knew, like, oh, okay, I need to do this and research this to get this and this. So you catch on very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. We enjoyed it.
So the 2 things that I want to note about this, the faction cards. Again, when I was reading the rules, and there was like 3 different ways that you could play the cards, I didn't think it was. I thought it was a little bit more gimmicky than originally thought. That is so huge. Mm-hmm. It drives your decisions. Mm-hmm. Do I play this as a true faction?
Do I get play this it to gain money?
2 money?
Yeah.
Or do I have to change my ideology because I have 1 of 3 factions? Well, I'm going to get no bonus points in the game. I have to spend this card to change it to be green to get more victory points for relics, but I really needed to That's really what changes your actions throughout the course of the game.
So every game is different.
Yes. Other thing that's really important that I noticed more so when we played with 3 people, though, is turn order. So turn order is dependent on this influence track here. So
which is different than most games that we play.
So it's important to go first because you can claim planets ahead of time. Right?
You can send people to the council.
Because you get more points if you do it first.
Yep.
However, it's also important if you go last. Because if we're going into the war phase, and I see you have 2 cruisers, and we're going to tie, I can buy that 3rd cruiser and know I'm going to be the warlord.
Right.
And I know I'm going to protect, or maybe I don't have to. So this is one game where turn order is very important on both ends. Right? Definitely sharp. When we have 3 people, I was stuck for 1 round. You remember, that was the train I was like, I'm going to spend 1 gold
to decide what to do.
Because they were going to trigger a golden age, and it was tough. And again, something that I think the rules are actually easier to learn compared to, let's say, like this game. Man, this took forever. And then to teach, people were super confused throughout the whole game. 1 round in, you get it. All the icons then make sense. Easy to play, and everyone's going to be ready to play, obviously, the next game. So, of course, as mentioned, this is coming to Kickstarter. This is just the prototype version, so a few things that I know that they will be unlocking stretch goals is going to be new faction cards. That is one thing I can definitely see. That is very cool. I think there's like 30 right now, over 30 cards. They're going to change, I think, the designs of the ships a little bit. This is just the prototype version. So highly interested.
I want to get it just to see what the new factions are.
Exactly.
The factions are the best part for me.
So thumbs up from us.
Yes.
Definitely enjoyed it.
Check it out.
I think we're going to play a game right now after talking about this again. So, of course, thanks a lot for watching. Again, this is Age of Galaxies coming to Kickstarter soon. Thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you next time.